I'm here this evening to plant some leeks. Now, leeks I think are a really great crop to grow in the home garden because it really doesn't take a lot of space to produce a really good high value crop. Leeks are quite expensive to buy, far more expensive than onions, and they're really great to enjoy them in winter and autumn. We love them in soups, stews, and also I think leek quiche is really tasty. So it's nice to have the few. Now look, you can grow them from seed of course, or we find that just one punnet like this is quite sufficient to provide us with the leeks that we need. Now I'm planting here in green waste compost that I've layered over the top of the soil. It's probably around about 4 or 5 centimeters, so about 2 inches thick, and I'm going to put fairly deep furrows in and put the leeks in. Now spacing wise they can be fairly close in the furrow, but they are going to grow quite big, so you need to give them a little bit of space between each furrow. Now if you're wondering what this is the parsnip, which has come up of its own accord, and I'm simply allowing it to grow because it's going to be fine as a parsnip, but I'll put a couple of leeks around it. So using the Homey is an easy way of running these furrows in, but you can use any tool that you choose. Now I might need more yet, but I'll measure as I go. Now you're probably wondering what this is for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bare root these leeks, which is one of the reasons that I have waited until the sun is now off this area. It's late evening, because you don't want any sun shock on them while you're doing that. Now I've put a little water and I'm just adding a little seaweed concentrate to it, and in this bucket I have some water, so I'm going to open this up, and these have been planted in clumps, a clump of seed in there. Now you could just put the whole thing in, but it would be a very tight mass of leek and they're not really going to develop the same as if you plant them individually. So taking each one of these, I'm going to wash all the soil off so that it's just bare roots, and I'll soak those bare roots in here. So I'll go through those and do that. The little amount of seaweed concentrate on the root I think helps settle them in and gets them growing nicely, so it's a good thing to do with them. Now there's not a lot of plants that you generally don't bare root plants, should I say, because most plants would find it a little bit too much shock, but these seem to do just fine. So now that I've washed the roots and put some seaweed on, I can take them individually and sit them into the soil, putting them in the rows. Now the in-row spacing, they tangle a little bit, I find can be probably around about 4 inches, 100 millimeters apart, and they'll still grow to really nice sized leeks that you really can't get your fingers together when you put them around when it comes to harvest time. Now timing of planting leeks is fairly critical to when you want to harvest. The first time I planted leeks, I planted them in early spring, and I found that they came at the end of summer. They were already ready to harvest, and by autumn they were going to seed, which was too early. It was far too early for my, well, let's say for when I wanted to actually consume them. So what I've found, the best time to plant them is right at the beginning of, that's a little tiny one, right at the beginning of summer. And by doing that, they're not ready then until, well, mid-autumn, I suppose, and you can then consume them all the way through winter without any problems, and they won't start going to seed, or most of them won't, until the following spring. So it gives you plenty of time for harvest. Now these are fairly long, these ones for putting out. Now a lot of people, traditionally anyway, you plant these quite deep in a hole. I don't do that because I'm not that focused on getting white stems, but if you want to get white stems you could plant them deeper. But the thing I will do is, as they develop, I'll probably come along and put more compost in between, and that will actually help blanch the stems as well as feeding them fantastically. So going to need at least another row here, I see. It's quite amazing how far a punnet goes and how many leeks you actually get out of them. So now that they're all out, I will simply go through and backfill against these roots. Now, you don't need, you can do this with your hand, it's pretty soft, don't need to actually stand them up straight. The fact that they're laying over doesn't matter. They will stand themselves up quite happily on their own over the next few days. But get the roots buried nice and deeply. As I said, because I've waited until the sun is off this area, it means that I don't have to worry too much about the roots. They're not going to be drying out. If I was doing this with the sun shining brightly on, I'd have to be more concerned and a bit faster in covering those roots. Right, now they're all in, the next major thing is watering. Watering them is really important to settling them in. I always sort of follow the rule that when I'm putting in new things like this, I water at least every morning and night for the first couple of days till they're settled in. I'm currently looking forward to getting some rainfall probably in the next 24 hours. So I'll water them a couple of times and then the rain will come along and that'll do the follow-up job. So working this way, it's pretty easy and you'll really enjoy some nice big leeks because the nourishment of this compost is really going to make them grow fantastically.